Morning, students. So before starting the next topic, we will have a quick recap of the chapter. That first of all, we read that how the company becomes the diwan, how did they started their diwani system in Bengal, and then we read that why did they need to improve agriculture, and what kind of problems did they face, what kind of revenue systems did they start, permanent settlement, Mahalwadi settlement, Monroe settlement, which was also known as the Rayatwadi system, why these systems were started and what kind of problems did they face also. Then crops for Europe, what kind of crops were basically grown for the Europe, and why were the peasants to asked and the forced to grow these kind of few crops. And afterwards, today we have to start the new topic, that is Britain turns to India. That why did Britain turns to India? So the demand for indigo was rising day by day in Europe. Therefore, the company decided to expand indigo cultivation in India. Bengal was the largest exporter of indigo to the Britain. In 1810, about 95% of the indigo imported by Britain was from Bengal. As the indigo trade grew, many of the commercial agents and company officials started investing in the indigo business. As this was a profitable business, many Englishmen settled in India and became indigo planters. Even loans were granted by the company and the banks for indigo cultivation. So why did they attracted to India? They attracted by the prospect of high profits. Numerous Scotsmen and Englishmen came to India and became planters. So this was one of the main reasons that they turned to India. Now, next topic is how was indigo cultivated. Indigo was cultivated under two systems. What were these two systems? Those two systems were, first was the niche and second was the Rayati. Now, in niche system, what was there? In this system, the planter produced indigo on the land which was under his own control. Either he was the owner or he had rented it from for indigo cultivation. But the niche cultivators found it difficult to grow indigo as it required a large fertile area which was not easily available as most of the land was densely populated. Even laborers were not available sometimes as they were busy with the rice cultivation. Thus, they were not interested in growing indigo anymore. Next is Rayati system. What was Rayati system? Under the Rayati system, the planters entered into contract with Rayats or village headmen, sometimes forcefully. According to the contract, 25% of land was exclusively kept for the cultivation of indigo and loans were provided for its cultivation. Now the planter used to provide the seeds and drill to the farmer and he in return had to take care of the plants. But soon the Rayats realized that this system was not an easy one because they got trapped in the cycle of loans which were unending and the income they received through indigo plantation was also very meager. Even the fertility of land deteriorated. The land became unfit for the growth of rice after the cultivation of indigo. Now, after the cultivation of indigo, why the land became unfit? What was the unfit for the growth of rice? What was the reason behind it? The reason was the indigo was a crop who needed a lot of nutrients to grow. Now, this crop always need a fertile land because a lot of nutrients are required to grow this crop, and once this crop has grown in one of the plot, it means that all the nutrients will be lost. It means that on the other side that rice could not be grown on that land where the indigo has grown once. So that's why the peasants, the farmers did not want to grow this crop in their farms. Now you can see in this picture workers are harvesting indigo in early 19th century in Bengal. In India, the indigo plant was cut mostly by men. In this picture, you can see figure number 9, the indigo plant being brought from the fields to the factory. Now here in this picture, you can see that here it's a indigo factory. It is located near the indigo fields. This is a picture which is painted by William Simpson in 1863. Now you can see that here the indigo factory is located near indigo fields only. Why? What was the reason behind it? So that the more transport will not be used to bring the raw material towards the factory. Now here in this picture you can see figure number 11. Women usually carried the indigo plant to the vats. Now we will see here in figure number 10, as we have already seen. So I'll read here few lines. The indigo villages were usually around indigo factories owned by plants. After harvest, the indigo plant was taken to the vats in the indigo factory. 3 or 4 vats were needed to manufacture the dye. Each vat had a separate function. The leaves stripped off the indigo plant were first soaked in the warm water in the vat, known as the fermenting or steeper vat, for several hours. When the plants fermented, the liquid began to boil and bubble. Now the rotten leaves were taken out and the liquid drained into another vat that was placed just below the first vat. In the second vat, known as the bitter vat, the solution was continuously stirred and beaten with paddles. When the liquid gradually turned green and then blue, lime water was added to the vat. Gradually, the indigo separated out in flakes. A muddy sediment settled at the bottom of the vat and a clear liquid rose to the surface. The liquid was drained off and the sediment, the indigo pulp, transferred to another vat known as the settling vat and then pressed and dried for sale. So this is the whole process which they have written over here to make the indigo, to use the indigo. The indigo is ready for sale now. Okay, that was the last stage of the production. Workers stamping and cutting the indigo pulp that has been pressed and molded. Okay, next topic is the Blue Rebellion, and after this we will continue in the next lecture.